Hello everyone, I'm Black Marvin. I'm a progressive psychedelic trance artist and I'm an electronic music teacher. Today I'm doing a video on my favorite type of synthesis in one of my favorite synthesizer. We're going to do some dark granular synthesis inside Pigments. In order to achieve that, we're going to use some source material from a sample pack by Fractal Sounds. The pack is called Sludge, Grid, and Synths. If you've been following stuff on my channel, you know that it's kind of related to the Sludge Multipass presets. In fact, these sounds have been generated using that pack. There's a link in the description. If you don't know what it is, you can check out the tutorial about Sludge. And of course, there's going to be a link to the pack in and of itself. It's a really good pack to make, well, grids and synths, but it also makes very useful granular sources. I'm going to explain you why in the video, why it makes such great granular sources. But yeah, that's what we're going to use today. Before we dive inside the video, if you like these topics, which is granular synthesis, pigments, or just pushing your sound design skills further, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel. There's a lot of very exciting and geeky content like this coming up on the channel always. And let's do this. So we are inside Pigments, and that's what we're going to do today. So the source material we're going to use is from Sludge, Grid, and Synths. It is a fraction pack available on fractalsounds.ca. This pack is meant to be used as grids and synths, but it is very versatile and it can be used as very good granular synthesis sources. We're going to dip into the sludgy saw loops today, but there's also the percussive sludgy loops. There's the swamp loops. But we're going to use this sludgy saw loops because we want something that in the end is kind of tonal, you know, that we can perceive some amount of tonality. If we were to use the percussive the sludgy grid loops, which are more percussive, we would end up with something that even more abstract as a soundscape, and that's not really what we want. Although it would make some really good stuff. So let's start from the beginning. We're gonna get a new preset. We're gonna choose sample for the engine one. We're gonna engage the granular, and you know, I ended up with this is the one I used in the example. But I'm gonna start with another one. I'm gonna start, let's say with this one. They all make great granular sources because there's a mathematical aspect to them in the sense that there's the rhythm that is, you know, that is a solid rhythm and synced. But there's also like the modulations are quite random in these. So that's gonna make a really a unique and like evolving granular soundscape because of that randomness. So that's the first step here. All right, we have. Let's just hear how it sounds first. You know, that's already good, but what we want is to have a sustained pad feeling, and for that we need some, you know, that the Gaussian algorithm might be better than the triangle one because we want the grains to blend into each grains, you know, to blend into the other grains, and that will make a sustained pad feel. And actually, what we don't want is something like this, you know, the grains being too thin. That makes like that's an interesting texture, but not for what we want to achieve today. So with with this, so with larger. That's the shape of the grain with something larger that should work, and also a more higher density. All right, so that's the first step. The grains are they are of a good shape. Right now, they're not too transienty. They're not too spiky. What we want to do now is to have some movement through the sample because it's gonna alter the grains. Because if we stay here, like you can hear, it's good, but it's quite the same. So let's go into LFO1. Let's get it through all the way, but in unipolar mode. And let's have it way slower. Let's hear how it sounds now. Actually, we want, let's try with the more random size and bigger grains because to me, it's not sustained enough. Yeah, also having a bit of more random pitch here is going to contribute to that feeling. So this source is interesting, but for good textures, but we might want something that has more less gated and more sustained stuff. Maybe this one. Yeah, that makes more sense. Let's do a quick jump here in the effects and put some reverb. That's going to contribute to that pad and atmospheric feeling. Also, something we can do here is to have a bit of low pass filtering going on to kind of roll off the high frequencies, and that's gonna, we're gonna end up with something that is less scratchy and less grainy. It is a fun texture, but that's not what we're going for today. We were going for something a bit more paddish. So that could work too. But also, let's just go back to this one, which is the one used in the first example. Okay, so let's hear how this one sounds now. And that's something really cool. You see that I can just, once I have a decent setup for my granular synthesis, I can kind of swap between samples. And also something we need to do now, since we know this one is E. Okay, that's the note. We're gonna swap that uh, as E. So now it's gonna play the correct note corresponding on our keyboard. So let's hear how it sounds now. And if you pay attention, there's a really nice sweet spot here. And you can kind of see it in the waveform actually. There's some more transient and spiky stuff here, but here it sounds really like almost like the breath of death, or it sounds like hair and breathy. Like yeah, like not whispery necessarily, but sounds more like the voice, eternal voice. So let's hear how it sounds. Especially in that part. So what we can do also, we don't mind, we can have it sweeping through all the spectrum. So with the LFO, we can choose the course of that sample marker. So this is where it's gonna, where that marker is, this is where it's sourcing its grain. So we can focus to have it just right here, to have you really just focus on having that breathy feeling. And that's pretty much it. Actually, we can do just like a longer attack to be closer to a pad. And, but, could also add unison. But in this case, there's not even unison, and we don't need any fancy effects set up. We just have like a good old reverb, and we could add more chorus and get it even more trippy. But with a really quality granular source, we end up with a very nice and interesting and dark granular synthesis generated atmosphere. And that's it for this video. Granular synthesis is hands down my favorite type of synthesis. And this granular engine inside Pigments is very, very good. So there's a lot of fun to have. This was a very abstract sound that we did, but I have other tutorials coming up with, it's still going to be granular synthesis, but we're going to achieve more, less abstract and more, common sound, but with the granular engine. So make sure you don't miss that. Check out my community of students. It is growing, and we're soon going to be like past the 1 year anniversary. So yeah, it helps. There's a lot of tutorials on YouTube, but sometimes it's hard to beat a good mentoring. So that's what there's on my community of students. And don't forget to check it out. The link is in the description, of course. And until then, I will see you inside another exciting video tutorial. Cheers.